Wizards of the Coast has announced that Universes Beyond will now get 3 sets per year, and from this point forward will be legal and standard. Now, I want to preface this video by saying, I think Universes Beyond has ups and downs. I don't think it's entirely bad. I also don't think it's entirely good. It's got ups and downs. You can't deny Universes Beyond has brought in a lot of new players, and I think that is good for the game. I think all of the criticisms that Universes Beyond takes away from some of Magic's identity, that's the word, that's what I'm thinking of, is a legit claim. However, for all of you Universes Beyond not enjoyers out there, or haters, if you will, I got some good news. And it is that I believe, in my heart of hearts, that Universes Beyond is not sustainable. Here's why. When you hear the term crossover set, the very first thought you probably have is that this means that Wizards gets pretty much unlimited easy product just by getting IPs, right? You hear crossover and you think, oh, now it's endless possibilities, right? They could go and do anything with any IP and collaborate however which way they want, right? And while I understand that probably is your likely first thought, if you actually sit and think about what Wizards as a company is likely allowed to do, you'll probably come to realize that it's not quite that simple. The first and most obvious stipulation, or I guess obstacle for a lack of a better term, is that the IPs themselves have to have big enough audiences to warrant production. Your favorite niche indie game is never going to get a set. It's not gonna happen, alright? I'm sorry. Look, I don't want to be the one to say it, alright? It hurts my soul too, for all you indie gamers out there, right? It does. I play lots of indie games, and it kind of hurts my soul to know that I'm never gonna get like a Darkest Dungeon set or a Stardew Valley set. The fact of the matter is that indie games audiences are just inherently smaller, and Wizards needs to make sets that are going to sell to appease their monetary overlord that is Hasbro. They can't spend resources making sets for audiences that are small and aren't big enough. But that's the one probably everyone understood from the get-go. I think most people saw Universes Beyond and thought, okay, they're not going to do indie games. I think everyone kind of knew that. Or like some niche anime, right? Next up, I believe the IPs themselves need to have a diverse enough cast to actually be able to make sets out of. Otherwise, you get weird crap like Assassin's Creed. Looking back at Assassin's Creed, you'll notice that the issue this set had was that the IP itself just didn't really have enough concepts, I guess, to make cards out of. Like, most of the cards in that set were just story items from the games or named characters. There were very few actual spells in that set. Like, yes, there were the free running spells, but beyond that, it was mostly just like named characters. They did try to fit like generic creatures here and there. Like I think there was one creature that was meant to be like a British soldier. So they did do their best, but when you make sets for these IPs that just don't really have enough concepts or ideas to make full-fledged 200 card sets out of, you get these weird niche sets that really only appeal to the players of said IP that regular Magic players just don't want to buy, simply due to the fact that the set itself is just too small to warrant buying. Next on our list of points against Universes Beyond, hate and bigotry. Harry Potter. You know Harry Potter, right? It's a pretty cool IP, you know. Always little teenagers casting spells, getting kidnapped to go to some weird magic school, you know, the funny talking hat. Yeah, that thing exists. Yeah, the Dumbledore. Yeah, Hagrid. Everyone loves Hagrid. PS1 Hagrid, right? Unfortunately, J.K. Rowling is a terrible, horrible human being. I think it's pretty unlikely that Wizards would want to collaborate with an IP that has a pretty heavy-handed history of just like hate or bigotry behind it, because this is a company, they gotta think long term. I don't think any IP in existence is worth pretty much cutthroating any future IP deals. Like, they're not gonna want to collab. They're not going to want to make a set for an IP if doing so would result in 10, 20 other IPs not being compatible anymore. They're not going to do that. They're not going to risk the future of Universes Beyond for one set. It's just not going to happen, I don't think. I can't see any future where Wizards would look at IPs that just have a controversial scene of hate and bigotry and hate speech behind the scenes and say, oh yeah, this is fine. It's just not going to do that. Also, Harry Potter, we just made our own version with Strixhaven. So, like, we don't need her. We don't need her at all. Next up is a category I have dubbed stipulations. This one's kind of weird. This pretty much is anything that I don't really think is worth giving its own category, but I still think could cause complications if Wizards decide to try and pursue making a set for this IP. For example, Attack on Titan, right? It's like, actually, I think Attack on Titan actually is like the most popular anime of all time, and lots of people probably would want a set for that anime. Unfortunately, Attack on Titan already has its own card game. Now, if Wizards went to Attack on Titan and said, hey, we want to give your show a set in our game, can we use your figures and likenesses and characters in our game? Would Attack on Titan, having their own card game, look at Wizards and say, yes? Because if they did that, that would discourage people from playing their card game, which I would think is somewhat counterproductive to building that IP. But then again, no one plays the Attack on Titan card game. Maybe that's a blockade, maybe it's not. I'm honestly not sure. I think things like that could vary from IP to IP, honestly. Another point I'd say is probably any sort of property that has a theme of just like sexuality, sexual themes, sexual violence, and sort of thing like that, I think is probably just a flat out no from Wizards. The IP has to be at least family friendly enough to make a set out of, right? Grand Theft Auto, there's strip clubs in that game. There's like full-on crime that happens in that game with like police officers getting shot. Would Wizards want to associate the game with that? I'm really not sure. I feel like the answer is no, but I'm not WotC. I'm not the team that decides these things, so I can't say for sure. And I definitely can't say with as much confidence compared to the hate bigotry point or the IPs need to be big enough point. And finally, there's the money. I don't think it's unfair to say that there is not a single Universe Beyond set at this point that will beat Lord of the Rings. Lord of the Rings made Wizards more money than ever before. And you know what happened that year? Yeah, it's thanks Chris, thanks, awesome. As I previously mentioned, these sets need to have big enough audiences to warrant making products for. And I also don't think it's unfair to say that lately, Wizards has been going hard, very hard on these like heavy hitter IPs. Lord of the Rings, we're getting Final Fantasy next year, we're getting Marvel, right? All these like massive IPs that are really well known, and even people who aren't really well versed in gaming or watching movies know of these IPs. So as time goes on, Wizards is going to slowly run out of these heavy hitting IPs. I guess my point here is, at what point does the audiences for future UB sets shrink down enough to the point where Hasbro steps in and says, no, we're stopping this. Universe Beyond is not worth it anymore. These sets, these audiences are too small. These sets are no longer selling well. Now, with all of those points, stipulations, complications out of the way, I want you to sit there and think to yourself, how many properties, games, animes, shows, whatever can you think of that get past all of those points? So, to recap, the property needs to have a big enough audience for production. The IP needs to be diverse enough to make enough cards for, enough characters, enough monsters, enemies, enough spells, techniques, whatever, right? The IP just has to have enough stuff to work with. The IP has to not have a background of hate or bigotry associated with it. The IP has to not have their own card game. The IP has to not have unfamily-friendly themes. And finally, do you think the IP in general would just be able to make enough money for Hasbro to give the green light? If I sit here right now and think to you of like what properties I think will actually be feasible for Universe Beyond, I'm thinking like Devil May Cry, because you got the demons and all the characters. Plus, every character has like a ton of like named combo moves, so they could probably do something with that. Nero has all his machine arms in DMC5 as well, so they could do that. Red Dead Redemption, I think, could maybe work. There's 2 games there. There's a lot of named characters. I guess my question, the problem there, I think, would be there's not really enough concepts, because beyond the characters, what do you do, right? Do you give random guns cards? Do you make a card just called Shotgun? Do you do that? Like this is what I'm talking about, right? Like, sure, you can make cards for the Vanderlyn gang, and maybe make a couple of cards that reference, like, robbery techniques of like hopping carriages or whatever, but beyond that, what do you do? I feel like Red Dead Redemption would end up being an Assassin's Creed set with only 80 cards, which again is kind of not great. Kingdom Hearts could work if you exclude the Disney characters. There's a ton of original characters now. There's all the Keyblades, there's all the Heartless, the Nobodies, there's so many enemy types, there's spells. I think Kingdom Hearts with the Disney characters being censored is a almost guarantee. We saw with Smash that Sora got added and they got Kingdom Hearts stages in the game, but if Donald and Goofy would appear, they got censored. So what is that? Is that 2? I got 2 so far? Alright. I think JoJo's is very easy. I think JoJo's without a doubt happens at some point, assuming Araki gives the green light, which he totally might not. I'm not sure. Between the stands, all the characters, all of like the iconic like attacks the stands have, the fact that JoJo's is just an extremely popular anime, I think JoJo's is almost guaranteed. It's just a matter of time. Death Note, maybe Death Note could work. I feel like there's just not enough concepts there. Characters, sure, without a doubt, no problem, right? You could totally make a card for every character in that show. It's just the issue is, what do you do beyond the characters, right? Because again, you don't want to end up with a generic with a Assassin's Creed set again, right? Do you make cards for generic policemen? Oh boy, right? I can play a police officer in my night deck. Oh boy. Monster Hunter could totally work. There's all the weapons, there's all the monsters, all the moves the monsters have. Monster Hunter, I think, is without a doubt gonna happen at some point. I guess Capcom might say no, but I can't see that happening. Mortal Kombat, Street Fighter, I think any fighting game like that has a pretty high likelihood as well. Keep in mind, we get 3 UB sets a year, so we got 6 so far. That's 2 years. We got 2 years of sets right now in my hand right here. Skyrim, Elder Scrolls, that's 7. That's 7 sets. Okay. Maybe you could even get multiple Elder Scrolls, because there's the different regions, right? Like you could do one set is Skyrim and one is Oblivion, right? You could totally do that. I'll even be generous and say that's 2 sets. So we got 8 now. 8 sets. If we get one more, 3 years of sets. Oh boy. I would say World of Warcraft, Diablo maybe, but Blizzard has a problematic history of like trading workers. So I'm not sure that's a thing that they would want to do. I'm not sure that they want to get associated with all those lawsuits and whatnot. That's kind of maybe not. I would say One Piece, but they have their own card game now, and that game's actually doing like really well. So I can't see them wanting to give their competitor a reason to make people not want to play their game. But then again, right? Maybe it'd be a thing of One Piece characters being in Magic would make people actually want to try the One Piece game more. Oh. No, whatever. No. That's too risky. It's too risky. I don't think I'd do it. They might, but Star Wars. Duh. Star Wars is easy, right? I think Star Wars could happen. Then again, they are owned by Disney. And Disney likes to clutch their pearls real tight. We know that. That might be an issue, actually. I'm gonna say a sure on Star Wars. I'm gonna say a yes on Star Wars. I know Disney likes to hold their pearls real tight, their chest, but it's Star Wars. I feel like Star Wars right now is kind of like a less cared about IP for them. So I'm gonna say yes to that. So we have 9 sets now. We got 9 sets. That's 3 years of sets, right? That's really all I can think of. Like, if I'm sitting here right now, like, brainstorming, like, IPs I think can make sets out of, I can think of 9 off the top of my head, which is 3 years at max. Okay, with the different branches of Marvel, we'll say 12, right? Because you got Iron Man, anything with Avengers, right? And Guardians of the Galaxy. That's 3 sets, so 12. 12 sets. 4 years. And keep in mind, all the ones I named have pretty big fan bases, so once you get past those, the pickings get slimmer and slimmer for Wizards. Like, this is what I mean. It's very easy to think, oh yeah, Universe Beyond will never end and it's gonna be here forever. I really don't think it is. Eventually, they're gonna run out of IPs that are worth making sets for. In my heart of hearts. Yes, there's gonna be, like, oddball secret lairs with, like, 10 cards at max, but I don't really think most people care about those. Do you care? I don't care. I don't care. Do you care? Do you care about 4 Fortnite cards existing out there in the world that I haven't seen once in the wild? Do you care about Walking Dead cards being out there in the wild that I also haven't seen once? Because I don't. In the comments, tell me how many IPs you can think of that Wizards would actually be allowed to go for to make a set for. Because I'm really curious. I'm really curious to see just how many y'all can think of in the comments. I'm very curious. If you want to see more content from me that is not Magic related, you can go ahead and subscribe to the live channel. Come to Poppy. Hey, you know what? You know what? I got a gift for you. I got a gift for you, baby girl. And if you want to see more Magic content, go ahead and subscribe here. Help the channel out. Also, like the video. That helps too. You'd be a real homie if you did that. I'm just saying. All right, it'd be really cool if you did that. I love y'all, and I will see you in the next video in 3 months.